Good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. I'd like to welcome you all and thank everyone for joining us. I'm Atsuko Ichikawa, one of the EducationUSA advisor in Tokyo. I will be your moderator for today. Today's session is hosted by EducationUSA Tokyo. Before introducing 5 speakers for today, let me briefly introduce about EducationUSA. EducationUSA is a U.S. Department of State network of over 400 advising centers in more than 117 countries and territories. The network promotes U.S. higher education to students around the world by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunities to study at accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States. In Japan, we have 6 EducationUSA centers at the U.S. Embassy and consulates. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact EducationUSA near you. In today's presentation, probably the most popular and well-known area for Japanese, West Coast and Hawaii will not be covered. I hope everyone will take this opportunity to learn about the regions that you may not know. So now please join me in welcoming 5 wonderful speakers for today by alphabetical order of institutions. Sarah, Cory, Kristi, and Patrick, and Lin. So I will hand it over to Kristi now.
All right, thank you very much. We are very happy to be with you today, and we're looking forward to sharing with you a little more information about the United States, about all of the diverse areas throughout the US, as well as about our individual institutions. So as mentioned, please ask questions in the chat or Q&A, and we will respond to those at the end. So I'd like to first start off and introduce you to the concept of the regions of the US. So as you look at this map here, you're going to see that the US is split up into these different regions. The US is a really big country and a very diverse country. So as mentioned, when you're looking to study in the US, you should look beyond just what you know, because there's so much more out there. And as you see here, when we talk about the United States, we often break it down into these different regions. So by color, you're going to see that there's groupings of states that make up the different regions of the US, including the Midwest, also the Northeast, the Southeast, the Southwest, the North Great Plains, and the West. Those are the regions that we talk about in the US. Next slide. So as we talk about these regions, they're not really official regions. So what I mean by that is that they don't really have a governing body of that area. They're more unofficial, more like cultural units that are formed by history and geography. So when we talk about a region, you may find that there's differences from region to region. For example, you may find that in different parts of the US, there's different accents and dialects. So although the, excuse me, the primary language in the US is English, you may find that there's different ways words are pronounced in different parts of the US. There might be even different accents that you find from region to region. Also, throughout the different regions, you're going to find that there's different lifestyles, that people have different attitudes and approaches to things. So you may find that in different parts of the US, the lifestyle is very quick and busy, where maybe there's parts of the US where things are a little slower and people are a little more relaxed about things. So those are impacted by the region you live in. Also attitudes. So this might include politics, or how people think about different hot issues may also be impacted by where you live in the US. And then of course there's fashion. So, when you look at fashion in the US, they often talk about East Coast fashion and West Coast fashion. They seldom talk about Midwest fashion, but that's okay. We're okay with that. So even how people dress in the United States can be different. And then of course, climate. The US is a really big country. So you're going to find on any given day, the weather can be very different from coast to coast and north to south. Typically the northern areas experience 4 different seasons, including winter. As you go south, you're going to find that it gets and stays a little warmer. So those are some of the things you might find as unique from region to region. And that's why it's important that you go beyond what you see in the movies or what you know about the US and actually do a little research. And it's great you're here with us today because you're going to learn a little bit about what makes each region unique and why maybe you might want to consider that region for your studies and for your future home. So next slide. So as we talk about these differences, there's different ways that we can look at how unique and diverse the US is. One of those is how we look at the economic realities of the United States. So this is a map that just gives you an idea of what we might call bang for your buck. So what that means is how far will your money go in the US in different parts of the United States. So the parts that are in the yellow, which you see kind of occupying the Midwest and the South, those are the areas where you might find that your money goes farther. The cost of living is cheaper and you might be able to be a little more economically, they might be more economically advantageous. So that's one thing that's very different throughout the US is the cost of living in different regions. Next slide. You're also going to find, and this is kind of a slide we laugh about a little bit because these are perceptions. When we talk about perceptions, we're not talking about truth, we're not talking about fact, but we're talking about how people see people from different parts of the US. And you may have the same thing in Japan where people from the north see the people from the south in a certain way. So this is true in the United States. So this is how people see people from different regions. So you might look at the South and people perceive people from the South as polite and easygoing, very kind, where people in the Midwest, they may think of them more as self-reliant and conscientious. And then there's the reputation of people in the East, again, not always true, that they're a little more, life is a little faster and they might be a little more aggressive and a little more worldly. So even how we see each other is very different. And, you may hear in the news that people in the US don't always agree with each other on different topics and that there's different ways of looking at things when it comes to politics and to other issues. So this might be a little bit why is that we see each other differently and we see the world differently. And so that's one thing to think about. Next slide. So this one is one that I really liked because this is looking at where in the US you might find that they like dogs or where they might like cats. So the US is very into having pets. So we all like our pets. And I'm a cat person. So I definitely fit into my category, which is you see the green areas, which are more up north. That's cat country. So that's the area where people tend to have cats. Where down in the South, they tend to have a little more dogs. So if that's a thing, if you think that's will impact your decision of where to go to school, look very closely because if you are like dogs or cats more, you may want to consider that. Well, actually, I don't think that's a great way to consider what school to go into, but it's good to know. And it's, again, another example of how the US is very diverse. Next slide. This one I think is really important because this exemplifies some of the diversity in the United States. The US is a very diverse country. It has people that have come to the US and made it home from all around the world. And so the first map you're going to see is the second largest religious tradition in each state. So although the US it's very common for people to practice Christianity, there are many different religions being practiced throughout the United States, and everyone is free to do so, and that's very accepted. So you might see, Buddhism is very popular more on the West Coast, where on the East Coast, it is Judaism. So, there are these different religions that are practiced, and also the other map shows the most common spoken language other than English. So again, while English might be the most common language, there are other languages that are spoken by immigrants from the different parts of the world. So you might see German, you might see Vietnamese, Korean. So this is all impacted by maybe some of the populations that have moved to those parts of the US and are now call those areas home. So those are some interesting ways to look at the US, and also a great reminder that the US has this diversity in people from many different backgrounds. Next slide. So now this is another important issue that we have to talk about, and that's how in the US people refer to the generic term for a sweetened carbonated beverage. So this term is called different things in different parts of the United States. So in the North, we call this pop. So, and you'll see a little more on the West Coast and some of the other coasts that they refer to it as soda. Down South, and Sarah's going to enlighten this to us a little later, but they refer to all of these drinks. Even if you're drinking a Pepsi, they call it Coke. So this is just an interesting map, again, showing that even the same item can be called something very different throughout the US. So this is really, you know, shows why we're a very kind of a country with lots of different opinions and lots of different ways of approaching things, because even how we call what I would call pop in my part of the world, other people might call it a different term. So something kind of fun to look at. So that kind of wraps up a little introduction and gives you an idea of, when we talk about the United States, how vast and diverse it is, and how there's different parts of the US that may be a good fit for you. I'm going to talk now about the Midwest, because that's the region that I'm located in. Next slide. So as you're talking about the Midwest, we're looking at this red region here. So this is a grouping of states that are made up, that make up the Midwest area. Next slide. So as we talk about these states, we're often talking about an area that's known as America's heartland. So kind of an area that's, you know, the central part of the US, and in many ways feeds and supports a lot of the US by some of its industry and some of its agriculture that we'll talk a little bit about. But also when we talk about the Midwest, we're also talking about an area that people look at as affordable cost of living, lots of open spaces, and a relaxed pace of life. So if that kind of life attracts you for your studies, then the Midwest might be a good option for you. Next slide. So in the Midwest, we do have a diversity of different types of cities and areas that you might find. So, you know, if you come, you might end up in a big city. We have a lot of great big cities, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute here. But we also have a lot of small towns. And when I talk about these, they're actually small cities that we sometimes call college towns. And this is a great part of the US in that we have these small cities that have big universities located in those cities. So even though the population of the city isn't big, you have these universities. The university brings in all these young people. It brings in lots of diversity. And then the city kind of offers a lot of activities and shopping and entertainment based around these young people. So they just let us old people live there. But really, these places are great places to live because they're very vibrant, they're very diverse, there's a lot going on, even though they're not a big city. So you might find that some of the universities you're looking at are located in these college towns. And then in the Midwest, there's a lot of farming communities. So lots of areas where it's open green spaces and very small towns. So next slide. So we did talk about there being some big cities in the US, and Chicago is the biggest city in the Midwest, and in fact, the third biggest city in the whole United States. So Chicago's a great city, has a lot to offer, lots of culture, lots of activities, a lot of business, and very vibrant city. So it's definitely a place that you can go visit. It's a place that is very popular for flying through. So if nothing else, you may fly through Chicago. And one thing to mention is Chicago is named the 4th most important business center in the world. So it's definitely an important city in the US. But also in the Midwest, we have other great cities such as Detroit and St. Paul and Milwaukee and Kansas City. So there's no lack of kind of big city life. So if you want to live in the big city, or even if you study in a smaller city, you can always go visit the big city and do a little bit of exploring and shopping. Next slide. So another important thing to think about when you think of the Midwest is this idea that it's, as I mentioned, a very agricultural area. So it's known as the breadbasket of the country. So the soil is very fertile here, and we grow a lot of different crops, including corn and soybeans. So a lot of the land in here is covered with these farmlands that are growing all of these things that then are taken out to feed the world. And one of the ways that it gets out to the US and the world is through some of the waterways that we have in the Midwest. We have some very famous waterways, including the Mississippi River and the Missouri River. So these are the two primary rivers in the US. And we also have the Great Lakes in the Midwest. So this is a wonderful feature of the Midwest. First of all, it gives you some recreational activities, but it also impacts the industry in the area. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. And you'll see that it's really shaped the what the industry in the Midwest is, and also has contributed to some of the opportunities that people who live in the Midwest and around these waterways have. So next slide. So as I talk about that, there are lots of famous recognizable industries that are based in the Midwest. And these include a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So as you see there, some of the companies are ones that are known for the automobile industry in Detroit and in Michigan. That's been a leader in the automobile industry, but also there's areas for airplane production, petroleum and steel production. Also, John Deere is a farming equipment. And so as you look at these companies, you can think about, yes, some of these are jobs where you might think that there's factory jobs, but there's also jobs in engineering and in business and in chemistry and in human resources. So there's all sorts of jobs that are needed in these types of industries. So there's a lot of opportunities here for students who want to do some sort of internship or maybe look for some job opportunities after they graduate. And I also want to mention that in the Midwest, we also have the Mayo Clinic, which is one of the leading hospitals in the whole world. So that's something for people who are interested in health services that might be interested in. Next slide. And then finally, wrapping up some information about the Midwest, just some fun things to mention. And that is that people in the Midwest are often described as being open, friendly, and straightforward. So there's kind of a reputation in the Midwest of kind of people being very nice. We always talk about Iowa nice. The people in Minnesota talk about Minnesota nice. So I don't know, we'll have to have a contest sometime and see who's nicer. I'm not sure. But people are very friendly. A lot of my students tell stories of people going out of their way to help them, and everyone says hi and how are you? So there's that type of environment. Some other fun things about the Midwest, the accent in the Midwest is considered the standard American English. So the pronunciation of the words are what's considered kind of the standard pronunciation of different English words. And so even like broadcasters who are studying in different parts of the country, they learn to speak Midwest English so that they think that that's a very clear way of communicating. Other things to know, the Midwest is home to some of the biggest music festivals in the US. Some of you may have heard of Lollapalooza, and there's some other great ones, and then some of the most popular amusement parks in the US. So you will not be bored in the US. And if you like to travel around, you might go visit the Gateway Arch or the Sears Tower. And then if you like to shop, we have the Mall of America, which is the largest mall in the US. So those are some of the fun things you'll find in the Midwest. So it's a great region, and I hope you consider it for studies. Now I'm going to talk and introduce my university, which is the University of Northern Iowa. So UNI is a public university. We're medium sized. So there's schools in the US of all sizes, but we're around 9,500 students. We really like that size because we're big enough to offer lots of opportunities for students, but then you're still going to find that your classes are small, you get a lot of personal attention. So it's a really good environment to study. And then we have students from 60 different countries. So you're going to find that you'll meet people from all around the world on our campus. Next slide. So this is showing the map of our campus. So as I mentioned, we have a beautiful campus. It has 65 different buildings, but yet it is not so big that you can't walk from one end to the other in 10 to 15 minutes. So you can get everywhere you need to get to go to class, to go to study, to go for recreation or meals. Everything is right on our campus. And one thing that's important is that the National Council for Home Safety and Security found us to be one of the safest campuses in the US. So we're very proud that you can come, you can feel at home, and you can feel very comfortable on our campus. Next slide. So some of the academic highlights, first of all, we offer 90 different bachelor's programs. So we have a lot of different options for you for studying at the undergraduate level. And then we have 50 master's programs, including 2 PhD programs. The areas that we offer are courses in business. So we have a lot of different options: accounting, economics, marketing, management. And we're very well known for business. Princeton Review ranked us as one of the best business schools in the US. We also have courses in humanities, arts, and sciences. So this covers a lot of different areas, but I will highlight that programs like our computer science, our electrical engineering, and our TESOL, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Language program, have 100% placement rates, which means students are all getting jobs or further opportunities once they graduate. We're also known for our College of Education. If you want to become a teacher or a coach or a counselor, and in this program, we also have a nationally ranked speech language pathology program. And then last but not least, we do have our social and behavioral science programs. These include programs such as geography and psychology and criminology. We also have a political science program, and it is quite popular because Iowa is somewhat famous when it comes to taking part in the presidential elections in the US, which I'm sure you hear somewhat about. But Iowa is the first state that gets to pick their candidates. So we get to meet all of the presidential candidates that come to our campus. And so it's kind of a cool place to be if you're into US politics. Next slide. Just to highlight some of the great things going on our campus, we have a lot of research, we have a lot of activities and scholarship that's going on. But some of the areas you might be interested in, we have an entrepreneurial center where you can start a business, and there's people there that can help you learn how to write a marketing plan and start your own business. We have a Center for Environmental and Energy Education. They're doing some amazing things. So if you think you want to get into areas related to climate action or environmental health, they have projects going on all around the state. And then we do have an engineering technology center. So we have a metal casting center there and an area called TechWorks where students can do a lot of hands-on learning. And we do have the largest 3D printer in the US that's located on a college campus. So you can 3D print your body if you wanted to. It's that big. And then in our biology, hopefully none of you are grossed out by this, but we have these very modern and innovative cadavers. They're not real, but they are imitation bodies, but our students in these areas of biology and health get to work on these very realistic bodies so that they prepare for their careers. So next slide. So my final slide is a little bit about student life. I think you're going to find when you hear all of us talk, we talk a lot about opportunities outside the classroom. This is one of the biggest benefits to coming to the US to study, is that it's not just about what you learn in the class. You have all of these opportunities outside the classroom to get experience and build your skill set. So at UNI, we have jobs available on campus in different areas. Some of those might include working with professors and doing some sort of research, both for undergraduate and graduates. We have student organizations you can take part in. And a big thing on our campus is to do field work. So 93% of our students graduate having done some sort of work in their field before they even are done with their program. So that makes those students very marketable. And we have a high rate of students either being hired in their profession or going on to further studies in their field. So we feel like UNI has a great environment to study, has a lot to offer you, and I'm happy to share more information with you at the end of our presentation. But right now, I'm going to pass it off to Patrick, and he is going to tell you a little bit more about the Northern Great Plains. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Kristi, and good morning, evening, everyone. My name is Patrick, and I'm with the University of South Dakota, and today I'm going to talk about the Northern Great Plains. So this region, if I can advance the slide here. So it is this region essentially directly to the west of the Midwest. So it's the states of North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Montana, and Wyoming. So the states that are in red. Probably the most famous thing of these states would be the national parks. About 13 million people visit the national parks of this region every year. So you might be familiar with Yellowstone. Not only is it now a popular TV show with, I believe, Kevin Costner, it was our first national park in the United States. So we do have a history of firsts in this area. So the first national monument, Devil's Tower, is located here. First national park in Yellowstone, the first cave designated as a national park, Wind Cave National Park, is located here as well. So of the 62 national parks in the United States, 6 are located in this region. So yeah, most Americans are a lot of international tourism as well that come into the region, they're going to those national parks. So it's very much a land of wide open spaces. So we have about 5 million people over these five states, sorry, spread over 1.2 million square kilometers. So just to give you an example, the actual land mass is about 3 times the size of Japan, but of course the population is a very small percentage of that region. So there's about 5 people per square kilometer in the region. And so of the most 8 least densely populated states, 5 of the top 8 are all these 5 states. That being said, you still see Omaha, Nebraska has about 1 million people. So 1 of every 5 people in the region live in the Omaha metro area. And there are other cities like Lincoln, Nebraska, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Fargo, North Dakota that have about 250,000 people each. So most of the universities and colleges in this region are located in primarily college towns. So as sort of Kristi was referencing, towns of maybe 10 to 40,000 people that have a large percentage of the population being college students. But there are also universities and colleges located in these metro areas. And there are certain concentrated areas of population and things that I'll talk about a little bit in a moment. So this is an area very rich in natural resources. So, some of the leading, we have, for example, North Dakota is the national leader in wheat production. It's kind of it goes back and forth with Kansas every year. South Dakota and North Dakota are 1 and 2 in sunflower production. South Dakota is the largest rye producer in America. So agriculture is very much an important piece. And all the states are national leaders in things like corn and soybean production, usually in the top 10, kind of behind the Midwestern states. We're kind of the next big tier of those kind of grain crops. And so there's really good, if you're interested in, agricultural education, right? So maybe precision agriculture, sort of biology, agriculture, those sorts of things. There's some really good schools in the region that are focused on that. So like the University of Nebraska Lincoln's number 12 in the United States for that. So some really strong programs in those areas. There's also very much a mining and mineral industry here in the region, especially in the western parts, so Montana, Wyoming primarily. Wyoming produces about 40% of the coal production or 40% of all coal extraction in the United States. North Dakota is the 2nd largest crude oil producer behind Texas, quite a ways behind Texas, but still number 2 in the United States. So there's very much a strong mining history. So some really strong programs in that whole area of study as well. So mainly like South Dakota School of Mines, Montana Tech, and elsewhere. But increasingly, wind energy, green energy primarily is becoming a fairly significant percentage of the output of the electricity in this region. So of the top 10 states that produce the most green energy, South Dakota, Montana, and Nebraska are in that top 10. So very much an emphasis on hydrology, hydroelectric power. So you can see there we have five major dams on the Missouri River that produce a ton of hydroelectric power, as well as really rapidly growing wind energy production. So very much interested in that. So if you're interested in sort of green energy program sustainability, there's some up and coming programs in those areas as well. And then, but the economy is not all about natural resources. I always like to stress that, it's not just, okay, well, if I don't care about agriculture or mining, why should I come to South Dakota? Well, one, as I mentioned, tourism, or the region, tourism, is a big piece of that. So there's, if you're interested in kind of tourism, hospitality management, especially kind of in the thinking of the, outdoor sector, there's some unique programs throughout the region. But the economies are fairly diversified. So Nebraska's largest industry is $8.3 billion is insurance. So as a percentage of their state, right? I mean, this is not a very populated state, but has an $8 billion insurance industry. It's fairly significant, and it's doubled in size over the last 5 years. So it's very rapidly growing. So if you're interested in anything in that sector, that's a very good place for you to study. In Wyoming, of course, mining, right, is the leading industry. But in South Dakota, banking is our largest industry. So about 10% of our state's gross domestic product GDP is just from banking. And it's, again, rapidly growing because Wells Fargo, Citibank, and other major financial institutions have headquarters here, largely due to our low cost of living, but primarily ease of doing business, lack of a lot of regulations and oversight. So those, of course, banks like that. Not sure everyone. Okay, I'll leave that aside. But so that's interesting place. Maybe if you're interested in sort of banking, finance, trust, administration, those sorts of things, perhaps a unique place to take a look at. North Dakota, of course, oil and gas being the number 2 crude producer in the United States. And then Montana's largest industry is healthcare. And healthcare is one that is an industry that's growing everywhere in the United States at a very rapid clip. But it's especially in this region because there's a lot of government investment, because to get into rural healthcare, but it's also just, again, lower cost of living. It's easier for hospital systems to grow. In our state of, in the Dakotas, we have one, Sanford Health, that I've listed here, employs 50,000 people. They have clinics now that are expanding all over the world. They're expanding all over the United States, and they're headquartered in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So again, some unique opportunities for healthcare everywhere in the United States, but then also here in our region. So that's a primer about the Northern Great Plains, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the University of South Dakota, which is my institution. So we are a liberal arts flagship university, have about 200 undergraduate programs and 70 graduate programs. The popular fields of study for international students, you can see listed there, primarily the sciences and business. We do have very small class sizes. About 1 in every 2 classes has less than 20 students in them. For us, a big class would be about 50 students. And outside your first year of study at the freshman level, you really aren't going to see classes of that size. Student to faculty ratio of 15:1, which has been steadily declining. So I think when I started, we were 18:1, and now we're down to 15:1, which is always nice to see. And we are very much a stereotypical college town. We have a very safe learning environment. We have about 10,000 people, but a student body of around 10,000 as well. So it's we have one of the highest percentages, or the highest percentage of college students to non-college students in any town in America. So it's very much a unique campus environment in that regard. So some unique programs I'd like to talk about that also kind of fit into the greater narrative of the Great Plains region are the 4 listed here. So the first is the Missouri River Institute. The Missouri River is either the first or second longest river system in the United States behind the Mississippi. I think it might be slightly longer, but it has been dammed for hydroelectric power kind of north of where Vermillion, South Dakota. To the south, it's been channeled for barge traffic. So there's about a 40-mile stretch that is essentially undisturbed. And so because of that, there's a lot of studying that goes on with the fish and wildlife species that exist in the region. So there's, and it's administered by the National Park Service as well. So if you're interested in kind of biology, sustainability, freshwater ecology, those sorts of programs, a lot of unique research that's being done because of the, this unique location of the university and this river system. We also have the Sanford Underground Research Facility. This is located in the western part of South Dakota. It's in a lab built in an abandoned gold mine, and it's a shaft mine. So it is the deepest underground, deepest mine shaft in the United States, second in North America. And with the National Science Foundation and others, South Dakota has built, and the University of South Dakota has built this lab, doing a lot of different research. Our primary component is neutrino and dark matter detection. We work with Fermilab in Illinois on that research primarily. So if you're interested in physics at all, very interesting and kind of really unique area of a potential area for your research. And National Music Museum, located here in South Dakota and the University of South Dakota. We have one of the largest collections of musical instruments in the world. So the New York Times, National Public Radio, and others have done various stories on us. We're currently going a major expansion and renovation of that space. So reopen in 2022. So just some of the things, like the world's oldest cello is in our collection, one of the largest collections of saxophones made by the inventor of the saxophone, Adolph Sax. So some really unique things. So not just if you're interested in musical instrument conservation, but primarily if you're a music person, you like going to concerts and lectures and things like that about music and music history. It's a really unique opportunity for you that you really can't get too many other places. And then lastly, and most importantly, we do have an Institute of American Indian Studies. So this whole region of the Great Plains is very known for their native peoples and the history of the native peoples. Have some of the largest percentage of Native Americans of any states, or kind of in the Dakotas and into Wyoming and Montana. So we're located on the lands of the Great Sioux Nation. And so we have a bachelor's degree in Native Studies. We have an oral history center that has for decades now preserved oral histories of Native people and the elders from those tribes. So a lot of folks will come in and do study. We have great collections and both of kind of archaeological and archival collections as well of Native peoples in this region. So we're very proud to have that, and it's really been revitalized. And actually just this year with more funding and a more emphasis placed on our Native Studies program. And then lastly, I just want to touch quickly on affordability. So not only is this Great Plains region, as Kristi sort of showed in her maps, one of the more affordable parts of the country, the University of South Dakota is also very affordable. So of the 50 US states, we are the most affordable flagship university. Our tuition fee for undergraduate and graduates around $12,800 per year. We do have merit scholarships for undergraduate students, and then graduate students at both the MS and PhD level have assistantships or can apply for assistantships, which can go all the way up to full funding and even exceed that for certain programs. So I'll put my contact information in the chat towards the end of the presentation. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cory, who will talk about the Northeast region of the United States.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you all again for attending. My name is Cory Cottingim. I am an Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions at New York University Tandon School of Engineering, and I'm going to talk about my region, which is the Northeast. Next, please. As you'll see on the map, we are located in the, as the name implies, northern part of the United States along the Atlantic seaboard. Those states highlighted in red are what is generally considered to be the Northeast. And you'll see that we're made up of a relatively small part of the United States as a whole, but have a great number of states within that small area. And that is primarily due to the history of the United States, in which many of the European countries that established colonies did so first along the Atlantic seaboard. Next, please. We are well known for our large cities, and of course that is one of the kind of main things that you'll see in the region when you visit. But what many people don't understand about the Northeast is that outside of these major cities, New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and several others, which are located along the coast. We also have a mountain range just inland, and about 85% of the region of our residents rather, do live within these urban areas. But we also have about 60% of our land area, which is covered by forests. So although we are heavily urbanized and many of our people do live in larger cities, we have a number of small kind of college towns that Kristi was talking about earlier, as well as mid-sized cities. Also, being on the coast, we do have a beautiful coastline for you to enjoy when the weather is nice, or perhaps if you like kind of cold weather, you can go there when the weather is cool as well. And we also have plenty of opportunities for hiking and skiing when the weather is cooler. Next, please. I mentioned that the Northeast was one of the areas where many European countries established their first colonies in North America. And from that history, we do have a tradition of having people arrive from other parts of the world, making their home in our cities and towns, and becoming part of the fabric of the Northeast of the US. In fact, 1 in 4 New Yorkers were born in a country other than the United States. And New York City itself is the most, more specifically Queens in New York City, is the most linguistically diverse area in the world by many measures. So you'll find within about 5 minutes of walking down the street in New York City that the linguistic diversity and overall diversity is really unsurpassed. And that's also represented by the fact that 1 in 2 or 1/2 of New York families speak a language other than English at home. So whatever your linguistic background or cultural affinities, you will be able to both find people of a similar background and, of course, make contact and friendships and enjoy the cultures of people from all around the world. Next, please. The Northeast is relatively small geographically, but we do pack an economic punch, so to speak. I didn't choose this fact because we're doing a webinar with Japan, but the economy of the Northeast is comparable in size to that of Japan. And we do have a large number of Fortune 500 companies represented in the Northeastern area. We were historically an area of manufacturing in the United States during the Industrial Revolution and after. More recently, we've become a leader in the service economy, and you'll see many of the largest banking institutions, as well as customer service companies being based in the Northeast, although much of the manufacturing, especially lower technology manufacturing, has moved out of the area, but we do retain high-tech manufacturing and research centers that provide good professional opportunities for our students, both during and after their studies at one of our colleges or universities. Next, please. Speaking of our colleges and universities, along with the history of some of the oldest states in the United States, we have also some of the oldest universities. Many of these are now known as what we call the Ivy League, which are certainly fantastic institutions, although I would encourage you to look outside of the Ivy League when you are looking at university or college options in the United States. The Northeast as a whole has around 1,500 colleges and universities, which is a huge density for our relatively small size. We have 7 of the top 20 universities for international students, and my home institution, New York University, has more international students than any other university in the United States. So many of our institutions are well equipped to meet the needs of students coming from abroad, and will be able to help you have success upon your arrival. Next, please. One of the things, especially at the graduate level, which is my field, that our students are looking for are professional opportunities, internships during their program, perhaps to find some professional experience through the optional practical training program after graduation. And one of the ways that we know that New York City and the Northeast are a good option for these students are that we retain around 75% of the international students who come to complete their studies in the Northeastern region, and New York City in specific stay there to do a professional opportunity opportunity after graduation. So many people come, these students find that it is a good place to study and also a good place to gain professional experience. As I mentioned, of course, New York is well known for banking and media, but we're not just banking and media. We are actually the second largest technology center in the United States after Silicon Valley. So you can enjoy a number of different sectors from which to find these professional opportunities. Biotechnology is one of the areas in which Boston in particular is very well known. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do retain a number of high-tech, high-value manufacturing facilities. Next, please. I'm going to talk a bit about the Tandon School of Engineering, which is my home institution, which is one of the 20 schools of New York University. You'll see the programs that we offer at the Tandon School of Engineering there. And if you do have any questions about those programs, I'll be happy to talk with you. I know many people are interested in New York University more generally. If it is a program through one of our other schools, you can always message me and I'll connect you with the correct staff for other programs. Next, please. To give you an idea of the size of the engineering school, New York University is the largest private nonprofit university in the United States with around 60,000 students. Next, please. Yep, there we go. But the engineering school has only around 5,000 students. So within a very large university, within an urban setting that is the densest in the United States, you'll have a bit of a smaller home within the Tandon School of Engineering. Next, please. There we go. We do not require the GRE anymore for graduate admissions for fall of 2021. So if you are planning on taking that, that is good and should help your application to many graduate programs, although it is often being waived for at least the class of 2021 and maybe further down the line. One other stat that I do like to point out is that New York University was ranked #2 by USA Today of all of the thousands of universities in the United States for the diversity of our student body. So you will be coming to study with people from all around the world in the most diverse city in the United States. Next, please. I'm not going to have time to go into all of the innovations that have come out of the Tandon School of Engineering. We have over 160 years of history. We were founded in 1854 as Brooklyn Polytechnic Institute. And you'll see on the slide some of the well-known innovations that have come out, including some of the first successful X-rays, the design of the Panama Canal, radar, the Apollo moon lander, the application of Teflon to metal, the modern ATM, barcode scanner, and more recently, our professor Ted Rappaport has been one of the world's leading researchers in 5G wireless technology, and we are one of 6 U.S. Institutions that have been chosen to spearhead research into 6G wireless technology. So we are a place where innovation has been happening for quite some time and continues to happen to the current day. Next, please. One of the professors that we have doing some interesting innovation is pictured here, and this is Professor Maurizio Porfiri, who has designed, along with his graduate students, these little robotic fish, which are used to lead marine life away from sources of pollution by mimicking and then leading fish in the wild away from potential sources of contamination. More recently, they have been used to drive invasive species away from spawning areas in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. So some very interesting things happening there. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the types of research that we have going on. So I would encourage you to go onto our website or contact us to look at your specific field of master's or doctoral research interest, and we will be more than happy to provide you with more information and connect you with one of our faculty members. Next, please. I mentioned the history of innovation that we have at the Tandon School of Engineering, and one of the ways that we continue that history to the present day are through our future labs. These are functionally incubators in which students are able to bring an entrepreneurial idea to a committee. They will receive seed funding, office space, administrative support, and perhaps most importantly, mentorship from both our faculty members and local business leaders to get that entrepreneurial idea off of the ground. To date, we've had over 110 startups, I need to update this slide, launched out of these future labs that have created over 3,200 jobs in New York City. And we need to update the economic impact as well, because that is at now nearly $5 billion in the city of New York. So if you do have a startup idea or want to get your entrepreneurial idea off of the ground, NYU and New York City are a great place to do that due to the density and diversity of the talent that is available to act as mentor and to find some funding for your entrepreneurial idea. Next, please. As Kristi mentioned earlier on, the Northeast is not going to be the most economical place for you to study comparatively in the United States due to the higher cost of living. I would like to point out, though, that many of our graduate assistantships and on-campus jobs do provide higher salaries to help to offset that higher cost of living. And beyond that, you will find that our job placement statistics and salary rates after graduation are, I think, enviable for many parts of the world. We do have a 97% career placement rate for our recent graduates. That means that 97% of our graduates of master's and PhD programs were working within their field of study within 3 months of graduation. We've been ranked number 11 in the US for graduate employability. And I think perhaps most interesting, we were ranked by pay scale as number 4 out of the hundreds of US engineering schools for salary potential. So it will be an investment of your time, effort, and perhaps funds to complete a degree at NYU, but it is one that will pay off in terms of future career success. With that, I will now hand it over to my colleague, Sarah, who will be talking about the Southeastern region. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Noppen, and I am the Director of International Admissions at Florida International University. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to the Southeastern US. If we flip to the next slide, you will see that it's comprised of 12 very different diverse states, ranging from the beautiful beaches to the Appalachian Mountains up in the north. Next slide, please. We are primarily known for our Southern hospitality, and the Southeast, it was also the birthplace of country, bluegrass, and jazz music. And we boast some amazing cuisines, and that's of course due to the very diverse influences of the people that call the Southeast home. The climate also tends to be quite mild with hot summers and short winters, and that leads to the name of the Sun Belt. We're also typically known as the Bible Belt, and that's due to the more conservative religion and family-based values of the people that call the Southeast home. Now, if we flip to the next slide, early in the US history, the Southeast was primarily an agricultural hub. We were producing crops such as tobacco, cotton, and peanuts, which gave rise to very important shipping ports. And while the port cities remain very important to shipping, tourism, and the cruise industry, the Southeast is now known for its very large service sectors, manufacturing, technology, and the financial sectors. And on the next slide, you'll see some of those Fortune 500 companies. They're very numerous, you'll notice. And while Detroit is known as Motor City and hosts many of American companies manufacturing automobiles, the Southeast is home primarily to international production of automobiles. So things like Mercedes, Hyundai, BMW, Toyota, Kia, Volkswagen, Nissan. just to name a few. Now, I'd like to just highlight a few of the states throughout the Southeast, and the first one is Virginia. Virginia has the highest concentration of technology workers of any state, and the fourth highest number of technology workers after California, Texas, and New York. Computer chips became the state's highest grossing export back in 2006, and Northern Virginia, which was once considered the state's dairy capital, now hosts software technology, communication technology, and defense contracting companies. And that's particularly notable in the Dulles Technology Corridor and the Tysons Corner area. And this is largely due to the very close proximity to Washington, D.C. and the home of the FBI. The state has the highest average and peak internet speeds in the US, with the third highest worldwide. Northern Virginia's data centers can carry up to about 70% of the nation's internet traffic. And back in 2015, the region was the largest and fastest growing data center market in the nation. I also like to highlight some of the research parks. So the Virginia Biotechnology Research Park, located in Richmond, Virginia, is a 34-acre commercial life science hub, and it's located next to the Virginia Commonwealth University Medical Center. So it houses nearly 70 private and public life science companies, research institutes affiliated with the university, and a prominent state and national medical laboratories. Continuing on down south, we reach Georgia, and there are about 17 Fortune 500 and about 26 Fortune 1000 companies. You'll see a few listed there that may be, you may recognize: CNN, Delta, and Coca-Cola. And most likely the reason why down south we like to call that sweetened beverage sodas Coke is because of Coca-Cola being headquartered in Atlanta. Now, Pepsi is known for, and it was created in North Carolina, but no one goes to North Carolina to visit the home of Pepsi. And Coke has done a very good job of making Atlanta the home of Coke. So you can go there and experience Cokes from around the world, since they slightly changed the recipe for each of the markets where they're present. So as a result, we call soda Coke down here. Atlanta also boasts the world's busiest airport, measured both by passenger traffic and by airport or airline traffic. And also the Port of Savannah is the fourth largest and fastest growing container seaport in North America. I'd also be remiss not to mention that more top grossing films are filmed in Georgia than anywhere else in the world. And again, that's because of the climate. It's very warm throughout most of the year. You can have a shooting schedule that ranges throughout the entire year, and also the diversity of locations. So you can go down towards the coast, you can go and have the busy metropolitan centers of Atlanta, and then you could have the mountains or at least the hills a little further north. And continuing further down south, we'll reach Florida, my current home state. As of 2018, the gross state product was about $1 trillion, which is the fourth largest economy in the US. The world's top 3 busiest cruise ports are found in Florida, with Port Miami being the busiest, Port Canaveral and Port Everglades being second and third. NASA's Merritt Island, which is the launch site on Cape Canaveral, most notably is home to the Kennedy Space Center, has resulted in Florida developing a rather sizable aerospace industry. So if you've watched the SpaceX launches, those tend to happen right outside of Daytona Beach in Florida. Tourism, I guess not surprisingly, makes up one of the largest sectors of the state economy, with nearly 1.4 million people employed in tourism industry back in 2016. But we're not only about our tourism, our beaches, and the Disney parks, but we also do some amazing research. So the National High Magnetic Lab, or the MAG Lab, located in Tallahassee, Florida, is the largest laboratory of the world devoted to the study of magnetism. They produce and perform magnetic research in a wide variety of fields, and every year more than 1,000 scientists from a dozen countries come to the mag labs to use their magnets. And thanks to the state of Florida and the National Science Foundation, the researchers get to use the lab for free. And currently they do host the world's record for producing the strongest magnetic for nuclear magnetic resonance experiments. So very cool stuff happening in Florida, whether it's the hospitality or some of the research. And I do like to continue to highlight a few more of the research parks and the research that's happening, because I think it's a good way to perhaps think about choosing a university, is to find one that has done a good job of partnering both private and public funds to really super drive the innovation that's happening. So things like the Research Triangle Park in Raleigh-Durham, it's an urban area in North Carolina. It has emerged as a major technology hub, governmental and biotechnology research and development. It hosts both GlaxoSmithKline, which is a British multinational pharmaceutical company, as well as Cisco Systems, which is normally headquartered in San Jose, California. But both of these companies have a secondary headquarters in this research park, where they have about 5,000 employees who are there working on their R&D. And it's also the second highest concentration of their employees outside of their main headquarters. So the idea is really to merge these companies together to share ideas and to further drive innovation. The National Institutes of Health and the National Institutes of Environmental Health and Science are also located in this park in the city of Durham. Cummings Research Park in Huntsville, Alabama. That area is now the second largest research complex in the nation and the fourth largest in the world. It is one of the world's leading science technology business parks, again, with a mixture of Fortune 500 companies, local and international high-tech enterprises, and the US space and defense agencies create this thriving business incubator and competitive higher education institutions together, really driving that innovation. So looking for those kind of opportunities where, again, research and innovation and internships can come together. And finally, Columbia, South Carolina, which was my previous home before moving down to Miami and Florida, is home to the nation's only National Science Foundation funded industry university cooperative research center for fuel cells. And moving on, I get to tell you a little bit more about my institution, Florida International University. This, unfortunately, is not our direct campus. This is Miami Beach, but it's to show you just how beautiful it is to be down here in Miami. We're located just about 15 minutes outside of the airport, so it will be more of a traditional college experience, having a college campus life. But if you do enjoy the beach or want to have a big city experience, you can definitely find it down here. And on to the next slide, you'll see a few of our highlights. FIU is the fourth largest public research institution in the US. We host nearly, or actually more than 56,000 students from a wide variety of countries, and with more than 200 different academic degree programs. Those range from bachelor's, master's to PhDs. And we have one of the top ranked Model UN programs. And I like to mention that because I did see one of the questions about political science. You can study that pretty much anywhere you would like across the US, not just in Washington, DC, but Miami, being the gateway to Latin and South America, is an interesting place to study political science, given the fact that it has many of the consulates for the countries that are in Latin and South America. Many companies are down here as well to do business from Latin and South America with the rest of the US, and US companies headquartered down here to do business with Latin and South America. So if you're interested in those types of things, it may be interesting to study political science down here in Miami. And on to the next slide, you'll see a few more of our statistics and rankings, which we're very proud of. As I mentioned, more than 200 different academic degree programs. But because we in Florida have to deal with some major weather events, namely hurricanes, we have developed the world's, at least the US's Category 5 hurricane research facility. It's one of its kind here in the US, and it produces gigantic winds. So the idea is to make sure that our buildings are safe, our infrastructure is safe, and can handle weather events such as hurricanes. Because we are primarily surrounded by water, we also have the world's only underwater research facility. That's the Aquarius Marine Base. It's located in the Florida Keys. And there we work with NASA to train astronauts to go up in space, because working and being underwater is very similar to what the experience is being up in space. And because the facility is located at the base, so on the ground in the Florida Keys, our researchers can work up to 30 days in an enclosed environment, so that way the research can last longer. When you're diving, normally you have to go up and go back up, go down and go back up, and that really limits the amount of research that can take place. So this is a very cool and innovative place if you're interested in studying marine biology and oceanic studies. As mentioned, Florida is a tourism destination, so we do have an excellent hospitality and retail program. On the next slide, you'll see one of those things that we do, which is the South Beach Wine and Food Festival. And please, the next slide. That is a collaboration with the Food Network, where our students host celebrity chefs and people well known throughout the food industry. It gives them real world experience on large events, how to manage those events, how to work them. And as a result, a lot of scholarship money comes into the university, and the students do get paid for that opportunity. So there is that as well. International business is one of our top ranked programs as well, given again that we host many companies from around the world here in Miami in order to facilitate the exchange of business. And when things get back to normal, you'll see on my next slide, we have more than 300 different clubs and organizations. We do like to have fun here down in Miami. So it's not just about studying, it's about getting out there and experiencing the world around you. So whether that's through professional organizations, research, academic leaning campus organizations, or just having fun, we do want to make sure that you're well taken care of. Here, this picture you'll see is our Summer Fest. Each year, throughout the year, at least once per semester, we host huge campus events, bringing in top name artists and EDM artists as well from around the world, and our students get to choose who those folks are. So if you've ever wanted to see someone in particular come to a college campus and perform for you free, get involved in our student campus and our student life, and then you can help choose. So with that, I will turn it on over to my colleague Lynn to talk a little bit more about the Southwest.
Great, thank you, Sarah, Patrick, and Kristi. Hi, everyone. My name is Lin Larson. I'm Director of Student Recruitment in the College of Engineering at the University of Texas at Arlington. And I have the privilege of telling you all about the Southwest portion of the United States. If I could have the next slide, please. The Southwest portion are these states in red: Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. I've had the opportunity of living in 2 of the 4 states. Arizona being one, and I am currently located in Texas. It's a very large landmass area. Next, please. That has a lot of different geography. I think the best known and most famous part of the Southwest is probably the Grand Canyon, which is located in the northern part of Arizona. When I lived in Arizona, I lived in Flagstaff, which is the gateway to the Grand Canyon. It is also home to Northern Arizona University, that has one of the best geology programs in the United States, because guess what? The Grand Canyon is your classroom. You learn all about the different parts of the earth just by studying at the Grand Canyon. And also to the south of Flagstaff is a well-known city called Sedona, which is red rock country. Part of the Southwest is known for the desert and the red rock landscapes, but also we have various mountain ranges as well as deserts. So it's not just all flat and deserts and cactus, but we do have mountain ranges. The mountains you see in the top picture, those are the mountains of Flagstaff, which are beautiful in the fall with the aspen trees. And we also have lots of recreation outdoors, camping and sightseeing. The middle picture at the top is the Alamo, which is a very important monument to the history of the United States and especially in the history of Texas. Next, please. So we are also home to a lot of Fortune 500 companies. We do a lot of mining, quarrying, and gas and oil extraction in the Southwest, but we are also becoming a very sustainable energy region. We do get some gusty winds in these parts of the United States. And so in the northern part of Texas and the southern part of Oklahoma, there are very large wind farms where for miles and miles you see nothing but wind turbines. We are home to Ford and General Motors and Toyota. Amazon is building a distribution point here in the state of Texas. We also have Best Buy and Marathon Petroleum, which is also a major part of the economy in the Southwest. Next, please. But it's not just energy that keeps the region going. We are also very big into healthcare. We do like our shopping, and so many retail outlets, manufacturing, everything from computers and cars to factory equipment to coffee cups and plates, spoons and forks. We do a lot of manufacturing, lamps, furniture, all sorts of things. Education is also very important. The state of Arizona has 3 state universities and a few public private universities, as well as community colleges. New Mexico has 2 state universities and a number of smaller community colleges and a couple of art schools. Oklahoma is home to a few state universities and several private institutions. The state of Texas is home to, I think it's 34 state institutions and about 25 private institutions throughout the state because we're rather large. We're the largest state in the contiguous United States. Hospitality is also very important because of the beautiful sites we have and the historical areas we have throughout the Southwest. Construction is also very big in this part. Many people will have summer homes in the southern part of the United States if they live in states like South Dakota or Iowa, or even New York, where 3 of my colleagues come from, to live in during the winter months when it's cold and snowy up north. A lot of professional services, everything from insurance to taxes and banking. Government is also very large. And as I said, oil, gas, and mining. But we do more than $15 billion for the GNP for the region every single year. Next, please. So I want to talk about a couple of the cities in the Southwest. Houston is the 4th most populous city within the United States. It is located in the southern part of Texas on the Gulf Coast. It is also where the original space exploration rockets and spaceships were launched from. So the Apollos, the Geminis, back in the 1960s, were launched from the Houston Space Center just outside of the city of Houston. I remember as a girl, it was a big deal. We would all watch the space launches, the Geminis and the Apollos and things like that. So if you've ever seen the movie Apollo 13, when they say Houston, we have a problem, you know that they're calling down to the Houston Space Center, just located just outside of the city of Houston. The one thing I find really interesting about Houston is that it's a large, diverse, fabulous city, but it's also very flat. And the highest points of the city are some of the bridges that actually go over the waterways in the city of Houston. There's a few universities located in Houston as well, University of Houston, Rice University, and the largest community college district in the western part of the United States. So the Houston Community College District has, I believe, 14 different locations in and around this city of Houston. Next, please. The next city we're going to go to is Phoenix, Arizona, which is the capital of the state of Arizona. It is in the desert. So it's very warm in most of the time during the year. It's especially warm in the summertime. It's located in the middle of the state. And despite it being in the desert, I find it very interesting that it does sport 4 of the professional sports franchises that exist in the United States. So you can watch basketball or baseball or football or even ice hockey in Phoenix. Phoenix is also home to, or just outside of Phoenix is home to Arizona State University, one of the 3 state universities in the state of Arizona. So you have University of Arizona in the south, Northern Arizona University in the north, and then Arizona State University in Tempe, which is in the middle part of the state. If you're interested in studying not only geology, but also astrophysics, Northern Arizona University is a great option for you. It's located in Flagstaff. It is a dark night city, which means that all of the streetlights have to point down in order for the telescopes that are located at Lowell Observatory to be able to see the stars clearly during the night. Lowell Observatory is where Percival Lowell discovered the planet Pluto. So it is a big part of the culture and sort of things that people do in Flagstaff. The observatory is open twice a year to the general public. So you can go and look through all the telescopes and see all the wonderful objects that are out there in space. Next, please. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about my institution, the University of Arlington at Texas. We are a large public university of about 46,000 students located between the cities of Dallas and Fort Worth. We're about 30 minutes from each of the downtowns of those large cities. We're about 20 minutes south of the International Airport, which makes getting to our campus very easy. We are the 6th most diverse campus in the United States. And our diversity stems from having students from all 50 states, 106 countries with over 4,100 international students. And I think it's because of our diversity that we are in the top 100 safest campuses in the US, which is something I'm very proud of. As a large university, we offer 180 degrees at the bachelor, master, and PhD level. And as I said, we are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, which is one of the fastest growing areas in the United States. And if you're interested in journalism or communication or broadcasting, we are the 5th largest media market in the country. Next, please. As a very large university, we have broken ourselves up into these 7 colleges and a school. A couple of things I'd like to point out is in our College of Liberal Arts, we have a wonderful jazz ensemble program in the music department where the ensemble actually travels when we can around the world and competes in many different jazz competitions and very often has won awards. Our art department has one of the only glass blowing studios in the United States on a college campus. So throughout campus, there's a lot of glass blown art hanging on the walls or sitting on people's desks throughout campus, no matter what area of campus you are in. The College of Engineering, where I work, offers 7 different types of engineering to students. Our College of Business includes everything from advertising and marketing. Our Nursing and Health Innovation College is open to international students. I would say about a quarter of all of our students in the nursing program are international. Our School of Social Work is highly ranked in the US. Our graduate program is ranked number 25 in the country. Next, please. Student life, we all talk about how important it is to have something to do outside of the classroom. So we do have housing available on and off campus. It's not a requirement to live on campus. Our main library in the center of campus that in normal times, non-COVID times, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except for the 2 or 3 week break in December and January for the winter holidays. Many departments or colleges also have their own libraries that allows students to go in and borrow books, use equipment, things like that. We have many fab labs and maker labs throughout campus. In my own College of Engineering, we have 3 maker labs. Once you're trained on the equipment, you can go in and be as creative as you want. There is an entrepreneurial side to the engineering program as well, where if you come up with an idea and you make it in the lab, you have an opportunity to sell it to a local company or to a group of investors. Recreation and sports is also a really important part of a college education. We want you to be active. We want you to stay healthy. So being able to have access to recreational facilities is important. I know I try to go to our MAC Center when I am on campus. If I'm working, I like to go and walk around the indoor track or use some of the exercise equipment that is in the facility. We also have 300 clubs and organizations, and like many other college campuses, these vary from the international club to pre-professional club to sports clubs, music, cooking, just about anything you can think of. We are an NC2A Division I sports school. As part of your tuition and fees, we do offer free mentoring and tutoring to students, as well as health and mental health services. We also have robust career services located in the center of campus. I think it's really important for students to be involved in meeting with the career services from your first semester or second semester on campus. So you get to know the kinds of industries and companies that come to our campus to recruit students for internships or for jobs after graduation. You get to know where they're located, what kind of skills and knowledge do they want students to have before they're hired, either for the internships or for jobs after graduation. Next, please. Just a really quick overview of our application process, our admission process. We are a rolling admissions, which means once we have all the documents we need to render an admission decision, you will get that. We are SAT or ACT optional through summer of 2023, but we would require a TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo exam for most students coming from Japan. For many of our graduate programs, the GRE and GMAT is also waived. For PhD programs, these would still be required. Our decisions are based on your grades and your marks and other information that is in the application. And we do have priority deadlines for applications. These are attached to funding sources, scholarships, merit scholarships for the undergrad students, and graduate assistantships for the graduate students. And with that, I think we have completed our visit the 5 regions of the United States. We really appreciate your time. And now we are ready to go over any questions that you might have. But thank you very much for hanging with us today. And let's check and see what questions might be in the Q&A.
I see one here, which is, do you all accept Duolingo? I can say for NYU Tandon's graduate programs, we are accepting Duolingo with a minimum score of 115. And we found it to be a good option for students who are unable to get to one of the more traditional testing centers. And we also get scores more quickly. So it's something that from our side, on the university side, we'd like to see as well.
I think
and it looks like, does everyone else accept that as well?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like we all do.
So the next question I find really interesting is, the question is, I've heard students have deferred admission due to COVID-19. Does this mean admission will become more competitive for more limited admission slots in the coming years? Do you have any advice to get accepted at a university after COVID-19? So I'm going to call everybody out one by one because I think we all have definite opinions about that. So Sarah, if you would like to go first.
Yeah, so from our side, no. So yes, a lot of students did defer, but many students also chose to actually start online and then join us in person once they could actually come. So it won't make it any more competitive from any other times. So I would just say it's just as competitive, especially for PhD levels because of the funding. But no, COVID has not otherwise impacted the competitiveness of our programs.
Patrick?
And I would agree with Sarah. Our situation is similar.
I would, yeah, triple that. Agree to, yeah, all three. The one area where we are seeing is some of our PhD programs where it is, capped admission, to 5 at a time, and they're limited by lab space or things like that. But at the undergraduate level, no concerns, and most at the master's level, it does not seem to be an issue. So, but aside from I think really specialized, maybe we only have literal 5 lab spaces available for programs. I think it would not be something I'd be terribly worried about.
Kristi, any comments?
Yeah, I just think maybe a little more what Patrick was saying, that some of the graduate PhD programs that are more competitive and funding, that we might be seeing some of the students who couldn't get here competing with some of the new students, but that's going to even out after this year. So I would say that it's not as big of an issue. And then at the undergraduate level, no, we are admitting and trying to fund all the students who are wanting to come to our university.
So our colleagues in Tokyo, would you like to comment on this at all? Yes, no? Okay.
No, we don't have any additional comments.
Okay, so the next question is a homestay available through your campus? Anyone?
I guess I can talk about that. I mean, unless, most universities that I'm aware of, if we do homestays, it's usually for exchange students. But frankly, we really encourage students to live on campus if they're looking at that. I think it's a lot easier. If you're having issues with your roommate on campus, like there's all this whole apparatus and university housings to work through that. If you're having an issue with the homestay, we really don't have an ability to sort of go into that. Some maybe a lot smaller universities that have better, not better relationships, but closer relationships with the communities, maybe the private liberal arts schools maybe, but then they're usually residential. So yeah, not terribly common.
I'll mention that some universities, while they don't have a homestay program, they might have like a family friendship program. So like if your interest is getting connected in the community and getting to know a family, like at UNI, we have a program you can sign up for and you're assigned a family, and then maybe you go to their house once a month for dinner, or they take you on a little day trip. And so it's a great way to connect with American culture and get to know a local family, but we would still encourage you to live on campus.
Great.
There was a great question that not everyone got to answer, which was, what are the best food options in your region? And I think Kristi, Cory, and I all answered, but you and Patrick have not. So I think that's worth mentioning.
And I don't know if everybody saw the answers, so maybe we all can go, because maybe.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So,
yeah.
So in Texas is known for 2 kinds of cuisine. One is Tex-Mex, which is a combination of Texas cuisine and Mexican cuisine. So rice and beans and tortillas and beef or chicken, sometimes fish in a tortilla with maybe tomatoes and lettuce and some hot sauce. And the other thing that we're really well known for is barbecue. There are definitely different kinds of barbecue. So barbecue that might be vinegar based or tomato based, but slabs of meat, so beef and pork and chicken and turkey and sausages, all barbecued in these big pits. It's delicious. And you usually eat it with like mac and cheese or coleslaw.
So in the kind of Midwest, sort of, I'd say Northern Great Plains, well, in South Dakota anyway, I'll say our state food it's called chislic, which nobody outside of South Dakota has probably ever heard of it, but it's essentially different preparations, but either like cubed meat on a stick, or it's just cubed meat that's deep fat fried. And I think it's kind of, we have a lot of an ethnic group called Germans from Russia, that they were Germans that settled in Russia and like Crimea, Ukraine, many centuries ago, and then they left and came to settle here. So they think chislic is like a shashlik, like a kind of a, over time, they sort of took this kind of Russian, sort of Central Asian food, made it German, and then they kind of took it with them. But otherwise, a lot of anything deep fat fried is very, and one, aside from being very American, it's very, in this region, it's very common.
So I had mentioned Chicago pizza. So Cory and I could have an argument between Chicago versus New York pizza.
Do you mean casserole?
that could be a possibility. And then I also mentioned that we have state fairs, that there's big festivals and anything on a stick. So there's this weird phenomenon at the state fair that you eat things on a stick, like fried Oreos on a stick and pork chops on a stick. And so if you've ever wanted to eat stuff on a stick, you should come to the Midwest and go to a state fair. So there you have it.
And in the Southeast, you'll find a wide variety of options. So Louisiana, because of the French influence, I'd say shrimp gumbo. North Carolina, and pretty much throughout the rest of the Southeast, we're going to fight with the Southwest on who has the best barbecue. But I would suggest that North Carolina does have the best vinegar-based barbecue. So that's primarily what they're known for. South Carolina, for sure, the shrimp and grits is amazing. And then down south here in Miami, because of the Latin influence, I would suggest arepas are my absolute favorite. It's a Colombian Venezuelan cuisine. It's kind of like a corn-based sandwich is the best way to describe it. And then since we have a lot of Cubans as well, I would be greatly in trouble with all of my Cuban colleagues if I did not mention a pan con lechon, which I don't eat because I'm a vegetarian. And I'm sure that I just butchered the Spanish there, but it is a Cuban roasted pork sandwich, and it's very famous down here.
And I'm Kristi, I apologize. As a Midwesterner, I do enjoy a Chicago-style pizza. It is very different from a New York-style pizza, of course, which is a thin crust and a kind of a big, thin slice, which, especially if you're on the street and need something quick to eat and relatively cheap as well, that's a great option for you. And beyond kind of pizza or bagels, which New York is known for, you'll see a lot of kind of immigrant establishments where they take their food from their home country and mix it with something from the United States, which I've seen in Japan as well. And so you can have a variety of foods, but with a kind of US spin on them as well. And that would be true of New York and many other areas of the United States. So I don't think you will go hungry if you come and visit or study with us.
So the last question I think is very timely, and then we'll end this presentation. It's the safety issue being Asian, which I know has been in the news a lot, and it's a difficult question, but I think we can all pipe in on what our own regional situation is with regard to safety and Asians in our area. So Kristi, if you'd like to go first, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I can speak in general saying that all of our campuses take very seriously making sure that our students are protected, that they feel safe, that they feel comfortable. College campuses normally are very kind of safe areas for all students because that's the kind of environment that we encourage. So I know at our campus, we will not, we will make sure that all students are feeling like that it's a good place for them. If there are any issues that come up, we'll deal with it immediately. And there hasn't been issues. We haven't had any cases or circumstances where students have felt like that they were unsafe or that they felt like there was any sort of safety issues. So fortunately, we haven't had to deal with it. But if there are cases, universities take them very seriously and make sure that there are that students feel comfortable.
And I would say for New York City in particular, there have been several high-profile instances which are inexcusable and deplorable and disgusting. But I think if you're coming to New York City in particular as an Asian, Asians and Asian Americans make up around 13% of the city's population. So you will be able to be part of the fabric of the city. And I don't think you need to worry about being singled out because Asians are in and of New York City and have been for some time.
And I'd say for Miami, we don't have a large Asian or Asian American population, primarily again, because it's Latin American, Caribbean. That's usually who makes up the largest amount of folks from outside of the US or the largest demographics outside of white Americans. But I would still suggest that because it is a tourist destination, you have people from all over the world all the time coming here. So we do, in fact, welcome people from around the world, because if we did not, we would not have much of an industry. We would have some trouble. So you'll find that it is very safe and welcoming overall. And especially, as Kristi mentioned, on a college campus, you usually will not face those kind of issues because we welcome diversity and encourage it, and are here doing these kind of presentations in order to continue to encourage students from around the world to call our campuses home.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I would really echo both my colleagues, but that college campuses are in the United States are predominantly very welcoming spaces. A lot of debates and things like that are obviously occurring on college campuses, but I think with an eye of we all are in this together. And so I think that they are very welcoming by and large. And so, obviously these, acts, there's nothing, nobody wants to see these. And I think everybody rightly condemns them. But I think it is starting, I think the silver lining is it's starting conversations on campuses and how we continue to be more inclusive and welcoming. And I think that's, hopefully a conversation that continues, but without the incidents,
Yeah, I would agree with all of my colleagues. And with that, we want to thank you very much for joining us today to find out about 5 different regions of the United States, the things that we have similar and those differences that we can each offer students. We're really pleased that you all stuck with us today. We hope you learned something, and we really do appreciate your time in attending this presentation tonight. So thank you all very much, and we wish you just a wonderful evening. And we hope to see you on our college campuses. Thank you again so much, and oyasumi nasai.
Thank you all for wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed your presentation, and now I'm so hungry after hearing all those food information. So before closing, and also, I hope that all enjoyed the session as much as I did. So we have some EducationUSA events coming up. So those informations, please visit American Center Japan website for more information. And please do not hesitate to contact us for questions. If you have, please do not hesitate to contact us, and also contact to the presenter today. So this will conclude today's webinar. Thank you again so much, Sarah, Cory, Kristi, Patrick, and Lin for the wonderful presentation. And thank you all for attending. Have a nice day and have a nice evening to all. Thank you.